Howdy! So we are Group 46 and we are presenting our strategy to help reduce flooding and the effects of flooding in the Bryan and College Station area. Okay, so before we get started, I will provide some information regarding the background of our area of attention, College Station. As many of us are aware, College Station is a city located in Brazos County near the Brazos River. It falls within the Texas Triangle, a region of Texas containing the majority of the state's population, as pointed out on the map shown on that slide. The demographics of the city consist of 80.3% of individuals above the age of 18. College Station formed along the Houston and Texas Railroad, and since Texas A&M was established in 1876, the USPS inaugurated the city as College Station. While College Station does not have a history of severe flooding, it does have a history of flash floods and is considered to be part of the flash flood alley. This flash flooding can be a result of the floodplains located within the city around creeks like Bee Creek and Wolf Pen Creek. These floodplains, or areas of land surrounding the water sources, consist of clay-rich soil that prevents infiltration and contributes to the floods. In 1987, the City Council adopted the first Flood Hazard Protection Ordinance, which implemented strict developmental standards to protect natural conditions and to help control flood functions of the floodplains. Even so, flooding still continues to impact many residents of the Bryan College Station area, including college students. The picture on the right highlights the areas of flood risk within the city, the darker circles portraying extreme risk, while the lighter circles portraying minor risk.
Hello, my name is Daniel White and I'll be presenting the flooding hazards. So flooding hazards exist for students and faculty across our campus. Sidewalks and streets on campus are quickly flooded, which makes the trips for students and faculty difficult and potentially dangerous. As we can see in the image, this is the tunnel underneath Wellborn Road that students traverse to get to class, which would be a very difficult area to get through. One specific area in College Station that has heavy flooding is Church Avenue and University Drive. At this intersection, the Church Avenue street sits slightly lower than the University Drive street, which causes a divot which rainwater collects and floods. This can cause damage and harm to students, as waters can rise up to the undercarriage of cars, which is dangerous. We have many floodplains in College Station, such as Wolf Pen Creek, Bee Creek, Lick Creek, Spring Creek, and many more. 1 in 10 College Station residents face a 25% chance of flood damage to their home by 2050. So not only students and faculty, but also residents of College Station have flooding hazards as well. Runoff from our drainage system can cause further issues from stormwater carrying pollutants, sediments, and trash water down storm drains, which can cause hazardous conditions for the environment around and the habitants.
So you've learned about the various flood hazards in College Station, but the question still holds: why is a mitigation strategy necessary? So we conducted a survey of 37 students here at Texas A&M University. As you can see from the graphs, 64.9% of students have experienced flooding on campus before. And as the second graph shows, 56.8% of students have been negatively affected by this flooding. Therefore, it is important that action is taken to reduce flooding, and our strategy has been outlined in the following slides.
Okay, now that we've seen that flooding is a hazard in College Station and that it impacts our lives, we're going to go on to our mitigation plan, which has 3 points: building green spaces, constructing areas to be flood resistant, and taking better care of the drainage and infiltration systems that are already in place. So the first step of our mitigation plan, green spaces, that would include planting trees, creating parks, creating artificial wetlands, as well as rain gardens. And all of those things function to reduce the amount of rainwater that's going to run off across the surface and increase the amount of infiltration, removing that water from our floodplains. And artificial wetlands can create basins for the floodwater to flow to so that we don't get flooding in streets. So going in just a little bit deeper with these green space solutions, rain gardens are a solution that can be implemented anywhere on any scale. It can be large or small. It can be on the median of a street or even on a roof, basically any place that's not already being used. And good plant choices for rain gardens that are native to Texas so they can stand the heat, and they also suck up water and pollutants that would otherwise end up on the ground, include Linheimer's Mully, Gulf Mully, and Texas Sage. But there's honestly countless options, and a rain garden is a very versatile flood control method. And if you have a rain catchment container in that rain garden, that water can be reused to water plants elsewhere, to wash your hands, what have you. And then when it comes to planting trees and creating parks, as I alluded in the last slide, the tops of trees slow the fall of water and allow for more infiltration to happen. They also reduce soil erosion, and all of that is good for our waterways and is going to help reduce flooding. And a couple of trees that are native to Texas, again, can withstand that water are the bald cypress seen in the top right photo here, and the Mexican sycamore in the bottom left here. And then finally, we have artificial wetlands. This is probably the most effective solution because wetlands act as a natural flood protection. So by recreating that, we'd get all of those benefits. But there is an issue with placement as well as cost because you really want to put them somewhere where water is actually flowing to. And it's also just hard to reclaim such a large area of land and to dig out a reservoir for the water to go into, as well as planting those plants around it. As far as placement, I think central campus locations such as the golf course or even Simpson Field, if not all of them, because I know it's controversial, some of them could be reappropriated for a wetland. And it would just be cool to have that green space going to class. We'd probably have all sorts of different grasses and different bugs and little critters living around there, and it would help to catch water. And as for funding, that could be obtained via environmental project grants, which are very common in this day and age, or from the former student association, because you never know, there could be an alumnus that really cares about helping students that are dealing with flooding.
So another option for dealing with flooding is different construction techniques for building streets and sidewalks. The biggest idea for dealing with flooding is to elevate structures. This wouldn't solve problems with current structures flooding, but when a decision is made to build something new on campus or off campus, elevating the structure should be considered so there are less damages done to that building when flooding does occur. Another option is replacing concrete with permeable materials, and this could be extremely beneficial in decreasing flooding that occurs on sidewalks, especially on campus where there is a large problem with flooding. Porous asphalt, permeable clay pavers, or gravel are possible replacements. And then there's also something like the image on this slide, where you have gaps in the sidewalk that allows for greater infiltration. This would require funding, and it would also require shutting down sidewalks and roads to allow for construction. Funding could be received from donations, federal funds, or grants. And as for the construction of these sidewalks, it could be done over the summer when the city is less crowded and fewer people are on campus. This would be less of a disruption to everyone in that case. A third option is leveling off steeper slopes. So eliminating steeper slopes decreases runoff and pooling of large amounts of water, which is a big problem right now, especially on streets such as University where traffic is really heavy. When it floods, it makes traffic so much worse. So leveling the road in certain areas so that water will be directed to less crowded areas and can effectively drain into storm drains. This would also require funding and choosing a time that would be least disruptive to the population that lives here. And then finally, it would also be very helpful to have more storm drains and drainage systems on and off campus. One of the biggest problems we have with flooding right now is that the water has nowhere to go. Adding more drains and redirecting where rainwater flows would significantly help decrease flooding.
In the event of a flood or when there's heavy rainwater flow, you need to have a plan for the aftermath and for what you're going to do with the water. And so many cities, including College Station, have built in infiltration and water drainage systems. These were created under the Stormwater Management Program, which comes from the Clean Water Act. The process that was created by this plan allows the water to be redirected. And when the water is redirected, it can be used for many different things. It can be used to store water, divert water away from overflowing areas, and take it to areas that need it more. It also reduces pollution just in general, so there are many benefits to doing this process. But ultimately, it is the job of both the city and the citizens living in it in order to keep this going. So the city needs to make sure that these areas are planned out properly and are in the correct areas to best combat the overflowing of water. But the people of the city also have a role in this process. One thing that people need to do is they need to maintain the property. And they also need to do their best to reduce the amount of trash and stop the drainage systems from becoming backed up. We all have to do our part to make sure that the city of College Station is as safe from water damage as possible.